Thanks for joining us and welcome to Higgs in Conversation With. This podcast is designed to dive into the minds of some of the most successful individuals who are in senior positions within leading businesses in the UK and aims to provide a peek into their life, both personally and professionally. My name is James Modley and I will be your host. I am a partner in the commercial dispute resolution team at Higgs LLP. We have a brilliant episode store once more in foot. Can you cut that, Michelle? We'll do this. We have a brilliant episode in store for you once more this month, and I am delighted to welcome Richard Cox, Managing Director of Langley Group, an award-winning provider of EPOS payment solutions, software development, and IT services to the hospitality, retail and leisure industries. Richard, thank you for taking part today.
Hi, no problem.
I've very briefly covered off who you are, who your business is. Tell me about you. So tell me about your job role, the company. Let us know everything, warts and all.
Okay, I'm Richard Cox. As you said, I'm the Managing Director of two businesses. So I am the Langley Business Systems and the Langley Group. Day to day, really, my job role is very varied. I think as a Managing Director, you've got to be quite agile in your approach of what you do daily, weekly, monthly. So what I tend to try and do is, first of all, have my daily huddles with the SLT team. Once we've done that, make sure everybody's okay. Hopefully there's no issues arising from those meetings. I kind of obviously look at the things I have to do as far as any legal requirements, working with you, James, mostly on that. Any contractual requirements, any financial requirements. But majority of what I do is as well, my time is I work on a quarter basis. So example from today is the end of our quarter. So we've kind of got into a smart 90. What we do is we look back at that quarter with the SLT team, what we've done, what we set out to do, did we achieve it, etc. We look at our commercial goals, we look at our personal commercial goals as well. But also what we're doing then is we're looking at what we're doing for the next quarter, what the next 90 days. The biggest part there is, from my point of view, is obviously everybody in the SLT team, either the sales manager, look at the sales departments, the operations, etc. But as I said, I'm quite agile in the way I look at and approach the business. So I'm kind of looking at the business and seeing where it needs me over the next 90 days. And I kind of do that 4 times a year. What's the approach that the business needs for me to drive it forward to reach our end goal that year, or that 3-year goal that we have? So as I say, that's the way I kind of approach my day-to-day work, as well as the making sure everybody's okay, happy, enjoying themselves, having a bit of fun, and on top of that, hopefully making a bit of money as well.
Hopefully. So it's quite a focused approach then. Obviously, the regular meetings that you have, not only checking from a work perspective that everyone is all right, but on a personal level as well, to help you try and drive towards that ultimate goal, whatever it may be that you've set.
Yeah, we have check-ins. We have the check-ins with people, not just the SLT team, but every member of staff here as well. It's always good to go through every day. I don't come into the office on a daily basis, but I do try and hit the office 2 to 3 times a week. I do prefer the environment personally. In the office, I just do get that headspace of being in here. But what I also like to do as well, the first thing I do is I come in, I like to go in and just have a chat with everybody, talk to everybody. How are they? And not just on the job role perspective, but how are they on a personal point of view? It's nice, we're a small team, we're friendly, we all get on, we all know each other, and it's just nice to engage with everybody as well. And then on top of that, we obviously discuss work and what we've got on and what our targets are for the day. And then again, any issues arising, what we might need to deal with or need to get escalate to managers. Always check in with the team.
And I know the answer to this, or I should know the answer to this, but just tell our listeners and viewers, 1, how many are there of you in the business? But then 2, you've got a really fascinating backstory about how the business came to be. So answer that for me, but then tell everyone. So I've mentioned that EPOS payment solutions, but just break that down in real terms for people who may not understand that. So 3 questions, sorry, I did promise 2, but there's 3 there.
Could you say them again? Sorry, James.
Yeah, I know I lost myself there. So the first one, tell us about, and I'm going to do it in reverse order. Tell us about Langley. What does Langley do on a simplistic level?
Langley Business Systems is EPOS, payments, IT MSP, and software provider. I say software loosely because the other business, which is Langley Compass Group, is the software provider. So EPOS Systems is electronic point of sale, tills, cash registers. We provide those to the hospitality trade, predominantly people, things like stadiums. So you have people like Worcester County Cricket Club, Kidderminster Harriers from a local perspective. But anything hospitality, bars, clubs, restaurants, etc. We're providing those EPOS systems, the back office software, the installation, the training, the support, and the ongoing. The IT and the MSPs, traditional IT and MSP, broadband, 365 licenses, backup, etc. So it's a traditional IT company.
Right.
Probably talk about that a little bit later on because that was an acquisition that we actually bought in, which I felt added value to the businesses bringing that together. The payment cycle side of things came about because I saw 7 years ago that credit card payments were becoming more and more prevalent. I think at the time it was probably around about 30% cards, 70% cash. Obviously, through the COVID period, that escalated hugely to 80, 90% and then drove down. We would traditionally pass those leads on to the banks, and I saw an opportunity, and I thought, well, I don't understand why we're passing these leads, and we're also having to support them with the credit card machines and the payments once they're out integrated into EPOS. Why don't we become that ISO and that we're not the acquirer, our acquirer's Clover that handles the transactions. But why don't we do that ourselves? We had the big team to do the compliance and the onboarding side. So that's what we did. And it was a very interesting and varied part of the role. So we could offer that whole solution and also be able to support it as well.
Good for you. And I know if I broke you in half, you are Langley through and through. I think you've got an unbelievable work ethic. You work really, really hard, to say the least. But tell us the story about Langley. How did Langley come to be, and what is Langley now?
The very shorter version of it is that I left school when I was 15, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And after a very short spell trying to be a mechanic, my dad, as it was his business originally, family-run business, he started a company called EM Services back in 1984. And that predominantly was working with people like Greggs of the Midlands before they came national, Fruity Fruits, and a lot of high street butchers. The butchery trade obviously went a little bit into decline because of supermarkets. But I went. He said to me, "Do you want to come and work for me?" One cold winter's day when I was coming back from the mechanic's garage, and I thought it was a lesser of two evils. Didn't really know what he did at 15, and I just said yes. Went to work from him, but one of the good things that my dad made me do, and was driven that ethic into me, was he made me work too hard and made me work from the ground floor up. Becoming the engineer, doing the service calls, doing the installations. I just started to enjoy it. To be honest, I started getting more and more interested in the business side of things. I got involved in the accounts. Not really ever doing any kind of accountancy, implemented electronic systems into the business at an early age from an accounts point of view. I think it was QuickBooks, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And and then in 2000, I realised that the business wasn't necessarily declined, but certainly the industry that we're in was declining. And we did a merger with Langley Business Systems, and that was in 2000. The merger came about because Langley were more into till systems, and the infancy of EPOS at the time, and they had contracts in Poundlands up and down the country, and we came together into this purpose-built building where we are today, and the rest is history. Really, yeah, we're still here.
You obviously earned your stripes, because I'd imagine, and the reason I'm asking this is because we've spoken to someone else in another episode, the CEO and chairman of Scrivens here in Opticians, and he joined a family business, and he was telling us that it was challenging because everyone thought because it was a family, he was in it for an easy ride. But actually, he had to work really, really hard to gain the trust of everyone around him and prove that he was good enough for the role.
Agreed. And I've never asked my father this, but for whatever reason, he also threw me to the lions. He never helped me. He threw me out there, and it was a sink or swim. It was just the fact that, to be honest with you, I was very determined and very driven and very focused all the way through, and I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to get. At the time, well, there was a managing director here at the time, and I did a buyout of that as well in 2005, 2006 to become.
Okay. And how many are you now, so to speak? How many staff have you got with you?
I think in total there's 17 of us.
Okay. Okay. And obviously you've done the journey that you've just took us on, from the start-up to then consolidation to then growing and leading you to where you are now. And I've said it, I know you work really, really hard, but what do you class as optimal performance for people out there listening?
How we're performing. So from an optimal performance point of view, it's not just, you can look at KPIs, can't you? You can look at figures, you can look at the statistics. And to be honest with you, I'm very, very heavily driven in that way. But I also think there's a feel, isn't there, as well? There's a feeling and a feel in the business, and not just about, the turnover or the P&L. It's about people. Optimal performance. How are the people being driven? How are they working? Are they happy with the way they're working? Are they living the core values of the business? So I think if you can work with your managers and the people in the business, if you can couple that with and not just look at the statistics, you can have that, but you can have the feeling of the business as well. But also, obviously, I'm terrible because I enjoy the sales side. That's my dad was a salesman, and he always brought me up into that role. And I love going out and talking to people and listening to their stories that they have and how they got into business. So I do kind of default to that position still. I shouldn't, but I do. But you also get the feeling of talking to people and how we're doing. So it's that, for me, it's that optimal performance is, yes, it's about figures. Yes, it's about KPIs, but what's that feel throughout the whole business as well?
You've mentioned two key themes there that repeatedly come up no matter who we speak to, and every single person on this podcast, whether it's Marston's, Moviro, Fown, Scrivens, the same things keep popping up, and that's people and culture. Yeah. The intangible things that mean so much to a business that you cannot buy. How do you live and breathe and try and get that culture embedded in your team and the business?
It's very difficult. I don't have a magic solution. Having said that, when you've got it right, because again, it's that feeling. It's very, very powerful when you do. I feel that it's very empowering. And it's not empowering to yourself, it's empowering because you know that everybody else is on that same page, is living and breathing that same culture, and you are going places. That's the feeling that you have. That's how it empowers you.
Yeah.
The culture has to be driven from the top, ultimately. Having said that, just as the person, for me working hard doesn't drive culture down to the rest of the team. I think it's also got to be the way that we are or treating each other, the empathy that we also have with each other and our job roles, and it's making people aware of what that culture is, but also why are we here? Why is that culture? Why is this business, or why is this business being here for 40 years? What are we doing right, and how can we continue to do that and get better at doing that? And it's not just one thing, I don't think, James, really. I think it's a whole magnitude and different elements of bringing them all together. And when you do bring them all together, I think very, very empowering.
It's hard to explain, isn't it? But the question why, and you are the first person who has said the why bit, and it takes me back to a book, Simon Sinek. I don't know whether you've heard of him, but it's about the why. So what is the driver? What is the purpose? How can you bring everyone on that journey with you under the why? But I also know from knowing you and working with you for quite a long time that you lead from the front. You don't do anything you don't expect anything that you would not do yourself. And I think that's really important. And I think that is the correct way to do things. I'd like to think that I certainly do that. I'd hope that I do that. But I think to bring people with you on that journey, you need to be in the trenches with them when things are maybe not going that great. And equally, you need to be with them when things are going good, because it's a consistent journey, isn't it? We all have our ups and downs. That's just life. But I think that is something that you have that you should be very proud of, because I can see that looking in.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We're just discussing our quarter. Have we achieved what we needed to achieve in the quarter? We set that out. We have a town hall. We set out to the rest of the company, communicate to everybody. We drive that culture through into that town hall. We tell people what we're about, why we're about. We allow questions and answers. So it's not just us talking and telling people what we're doing. We ask their opinions of what we're doing and how they feel it could be better, what they could do. And if we hit that, you're absolutely right. We celebrate it. We're just discussing a celebration at the moment of going out and where do we want to go. I think Worcester Racecourse is winning the day at the moment.
Okay.
But as you rightly say, at the same time, things go wrong. And it's when it does go wrong, how do you act and react to that? And as you're right, I do like to help and support. And give people back and allow them to continue to do their job role, and allow them to continue to fight that battle, but also help them, support them, and know that you've got their back at the same time.
Yeah. I think that's really important, isn't it? It's trust in your people. Trust that they will do the right thing whether you're watching or not. And trust that they have the business's best interests at heart. And until that trust is broken, that person has it 100% and more.
100%. Absolutely right.
If you were to look back on your journey as to where you've been, and this is a really difficult question I'm about to ask you, what would you say are the 3 key non-negotiables for success?
It is difficult, but non-negotiables have got to be standards, absolutely standards. The little stuff. It's got to be all about the little stuff. If you have the standards on what you do is that 1% and drive the 1% bet increases every single day, you will go a lot further than trying to create a big change, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that's number one, is that it is just driving those standards through. That is a non-negotiable. Absolutely.
What's the second and third?
Oh, I think you've got to be, certainly in this company, you still got to be, you're not negotiable. You've got to be driven and you've got to be energetic, because at the same time, we've got to have fun in what we do. I think that's also a non-negotiable. What I try and achieve here as well, because it is about business. It is about top performing, but it's also about doing it with a smile on our face and having a bit of fun with what we do. If everybody stopped smiling or laughing or cracking a joke when I walked in the room, it wouldn't be a very nice place to work. I like that to continue, and I think that's a non-negotiable as well. Really, it's centered around work. It's good fun, but it has to be fun as well. So it's the standards of fun and having that energy every day to want to get up and want to come in and want to do a good job of those standards and be part of this team and be with us as top performing.
And for you, I would imagine the market recently has been very, very tough. So obviously we've had COVID. We're now 5 years on, maybe. But the hospitality, the retail industry, your traditional key sectors, as you like, have took a bit of a hit, to say the least, and they continue to suffer. You used an example before about the butchers, and the butchers was the fundamental bedrock as to how the business grew, but then you pivoted because the butchers wasn't doing that well. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you've probably pivoted again slightly with the outlook of the key support that you had around the hospitality, the retail, that is in decline or maybe is stabilising. Who knows what's going to happen? But you must have had quite a lot of knockbacks along with the success along the way. So how do you deal with that?
Resilience. That's one of the key things, isn't it? Resilience. I always say it does get quite fraught, stressful at times when you do have good times and you're enjoying it. I think enjoy it. you do get some very, very stressful times. And I think it's resilience. I always, from my perspective, I can go to sleep, I can wake up the next day, and I can go again every single day, and I have that resilience to be able to do that. It doesn't linger, and I can put the efforts into it the next day, 100% that I did started the day before. I might end bad, but I'll go again the next day, 100%.
We all have good and bad days. That's just life, isn't it? That's just human nature. We all wake up maybe not feeling our best and we have a bad day, but then the next day could be absolutely golden, A-star standard. But that resilience, that's a key word as well. So we had another guest on historically. Mike Smith is a chief operating officer for Moviro, global wheel company. And one of his key things was resilience, because things will go great, things will go bad. But the key message is, as long as you can stay like this or go up, it will be okay.
Absolutely. And it's continuing to reaffirm that to yourself as well, but being able to have that resilience of just keep going, trusting in the process, and keep going, keep the faith.
Where did you get your non-negotiables from? And that can be a deep question, but where do you think they were instilled from?
I think, you've put me on the spot really there, haven't you? I'm not going to get too deep into this question, to be honest, James, but I think it's personally. I think you get those influences from growing up. I think as you develop, you're exposed. You're exposed to
Yeah,
influence, good or bad, and I think
yeah.
you pick those up, and it creates and makes who you are today. How you perceive those, personally, it's only my opinion.
I agree. No, I agree. I've spoke about this before. I look at the people who I came up through the ranks with, and maybe used to sit there and think, I don't like the way that's being done, or I really like the way that's being done. And I think all of those learning experiences, not only in the workplace, but personally as well, around certain people you may look up to, it does mould you to who you are and who you aspire to be, probably.
Absolutely.
So interesting, and kind of dovetails quite nicely on that. What's the most valuable lesson you've learned so far in your career?
I'd say probably a lot of people say this, but the most valuable lesson realistically is mistakes. Is years ago you didn't want to make mistakes, you thought you'd know everything, and I think the most valuable lesson is that understanding that you don't know everything. There's no way you're ever going to know anything. You don't need to know everything, and mistakes are good. Mistakes aren't a negative; they're a positive. Learn from the mistakes, don't repeat them. But embrace mistakes. I would say that's the biggest learning curve.
Again, every person on this podcast has said exactly that. Make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you're not pushing yourself out the comfort zone, and it's okay to make a mistake. In fact, we even had one guest, Nicholas from Scrivens, who said mistakes should be made, because if you don't make mistakes, you're failing, and you should fall over and you should get back up and go again. But the key thing is that when you get back up and go again, you learn from what's happened. So you're not repeating. And if you're repeating, there's a massive problem somewhere, because you're not learning. And if you're not learning, that's not good for you as an individual or you as a businessman.
Absolutely. I've just had the conversation this morning at Smart 90. One of the people in there has got a task. And one of the things that we actually mentioned to him was go away and try and complete this task, which was quite a heavy task for him to do. But not go away and complete the task. Go away and make as many mistakes as you can by trying to complete the task. And that way you'll work out how not to do it, but then you'll get closer to the fact of doing it. Even if you don't complete it in the next 3 months, come in and tell us how many mistakes you've made. That's all we want here. And then we can all help, along the way or after that. So, yeah, absolutely. It's about the mistakes that you make. Embrace
I think that's absolutely brilliant that you instill in your people to go away, go and do it, because you live and you learn. And as long as you learn, that's okay. But actually, if you're going to break new ground or drive things forward on uncharted territories, that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is the whole point. And look, we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
We do, we do.
It,
And as I say, you've got to look at them as not a negative. If you look at a mistake as a negative, then it becomes a negative. But look at them as a positive lesson. Make those mistakes and keep making them.
and I think it's important as well, certainly from a team perspective. And one thing that I've always said to my team is, don't be afraid if you make a mistake. Come and tell us, because if you come and tell us, we can help. It's once you're in the eye of the storm, the mistake can be all encompassing and it can seem the end.
Yeah.
But very, very often it's not. And as long as people put their hand up and say, got an issue, I think this is the solution, but can you help me? Two heads are better than one, and mistakes 9 times out of 10 can easily be remedied.
Yeah, very agree. Mistakes.
Mistakes. But yeah, I really do admire that you are open and transparent with your people to say, go and do it. In fact, that's what I expect you to do. And if you're not doing it, then you're not probably doing your job properly or the task I've given you properly. I think that's a really, really important message that a lot of people will resonate with. And it brings me on to your team. So you mentioned your SLT team, but then also you've got your wider team. And you mentioned that without your team, life would be challenging, put it that way. What's the secret sauce that you've got? What do you sprinkle over to try and make the team as successful as possible?
I don't think there is a secret sauce, and I certainly don't sit here and profess to have got it right or have a secret sauce.
I was waiting for this because I need the secret sauce.
Yeah, I'll drop it off on the way home. The only thing I would say to you again is the fact that, let's talk about the SLT team. I learned from business coaching, etc., what I've done, that it can't just be about me. As you grow in a business and it gets bigger, it has to be, you've got to be able to move away. You've got to have people running the business to allow you then me to thrive and see where the business what it needs to achieve and where it needs to go and drive it into those directions. What you then obviously need to do is you have to lose control, and as a control freak, that's the difficult part to do. But also you've got to trust in those people. I think it's communication. Let them make decisions. I would say, everybody has to make those decisions. Just, the bad decision is not making the decision. Making the decision is absolutely correct. As long as we then can derive the reason behind why we made it, and that reason always comes back to our core values. And as long as those core values are built into the decision, it's a correct decision. It's never a wrong decision or a wrong mistake that we're making. We all, to be honest with the SLT, always, I admire them. They always stand up for everything that they've done. And I always know that it's done for the right things for the business. And we think in the same way. And that's the enjoyment that I have when I have the meetings with them, to be honest. They're all thinking on the same wavelength for the business.
I want to come on and ask you a question, but equally, you've said one key word, and that key word is, or should be, one of the easiest things to do, but in reality, it's the hardest, and that's communication.
Yes, it is, and there's many ways nowadays, isn't there, to communicate? From our phone, from our text, from our Teams, from our emails, from Teams meetings, video chats. You've got to, I think you've got to have that right level of communication. How we're communicating, who's communicating in what way. And we did a big piece on that as well about 18 months ago. Because I also think as well the tonality of emails doesn't come across right sometimes. And
we've all been there and read an email that you can read two ways, and one can be, ouch, that's really sharp, it doesn't come across great, and the other is, actually, it's pretty vanilla. But sometimes emails, texts, WhatsApps, whatever it is, that written communication can come across completely opposite to how that person intended to send it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I'm an advocate of is software, though, in the business of running the business. Massive advocate. So we're all about how we can use the software within the business to communicate with all of us and customers, and how can we use that software the industry that we're in, how can we use that as a better advantage, not only to communicate internally, but also communicate better with our customers, and our customers communicate with us as well. So there's a few things at the moment that we're doing and trialing on that, and a few things in the pipeline that we have with our software that we're building. So yes, communication is key. Also, as well, we're all busy. We all find that we're also busy, and I don't like having meetings for meeting's sake or meetings just to go over old ground. Having said that, you can also be guilty of not having enough meetings. So we were very guilty last quarter. We were so busy. Our first quarter within our industry is normally the quietest quarter, and luckily, touch wood, it was very, very busy. A lot of opportunities. A lot of work that was going on. So the meetings were non-existent. Now, that frustrates me, but at the same time, I have to understand why that happened, and I do understand that myself. And what we've decided to do this quarter is we're going to have, rather than weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings, there's 6 in the SLT team, and we're all going to be creating be available for at least one meeting that we all schedule every 2 weeks. So we rather than it's myself scheduling meetings, we turn up, we go through the 90 software. The SLT team are completely accountable for holding those meetings as a team.
You may not be able to say or want to say, but you reference software to improve communication. What do you mean by software?
We're developing our own software at the moment. So one of the things, I did an acquisition in 2001. One of the reasons I did the acquisition because it had a software development arm to it. So I did this acquisition, and we were developing software for manufacturing industry. And I looked at what we actually needed internally and decided to kind of turn that business a little bit. And actually, we spent the last 16 months writing our own internal softwares. So one thing that we probably do, and all of us do, is we all use so many different software packages, so many out there now, from whether it's the Microsoft 365s to Teams to Otter AI to transcription softwares to sign-ins. You probably write them down as 50, 60 software packages, subscriptions. So what we've done is we've actually gone down the process of looking at all the software processes that we have and writing all of those ourselves, but with in mind, how can it drive efficiency in the business, and how can it drive more efficiency to help communicate internally and with our customers. And we're just kind of doing a big piece on how we can integrate AI into that at the moment. So it's.
I was going to touch on this, and I will touch upon it. But that software that you're going to use internally, are you going to roll it out externally eventually?
Yes. So
good. And then tell me about that with the AI piece, because AI is obviously everywhere now. You cannot go anywhere without mentioning AI or reading AI. I was on an AI panel last month. It is the flavour of everything so far. So talk to me about those two things.
So we had to have a starting point, and as I said, I'm very close to the sales department. I've got a sales manager, got a commercial director, and we said, look, why don't we start with a CRM system? We kind of use Salesforce, which I think is a fantastic solution, very costly, fantastic solution. And we've got our sales cycle within there nailed, but probably only using 10% of Salesforce. So we said, why don't we kind of write this CRM, which we did. I got quite excited because we started using this and it was going well, write our sellable products. So I kind of got in touch with a branding agency and started saying, right, we need to brand this software. We're going to launch, sell it, write business plans. To which I was a little, as usual, a little bit premature in what I was doing. So everybody kind of simmered me down a little bit and realised, I'm not going to compete with the likes of Salesforce and Monday.com. So we kind of like, we haven't launched it yet, but what we do now is we're writing more of our USP, which is about how that software integrates with the whole of our business, from ticketing to planning to projects, and all of the software within there. And then probably in another 18 months, we will then modularize it and launch that to the market and see how that goes. It's what really interests me, and our USP on that is it's built and developed from us using the software from the front end. It's not developed and built by developers and then trying to take it into a retail environment. We're actually doing it as a business. But like AI, we've now started coming across AI. And like yourself, you started looking at how it can help the business. And because I've certainly myself just love technology and want to keep up with it, not allow it to leave us behind. I started thinking, how can this now start driving AI? How can this start driving our automation in the business? So that's at the forefront of everything that we discuss now. So if we're talking about creating a reporting module, it becomes, well, it's not a traditional reporting module. It's how does AI actually scan the reports and automate the reports to tell us where we are within SLAs, KPIs, callbacks, etc., etc.
I love AI. I'm not as techie as you, never will be, but I love technology. I always have as a kid, and Higgs is on the same journey as you. We're trying to identify which AI we should use. How will it be used? How will that affect the way we work? And I think many other law firms, if not all law firms, are on that same journey. And it'll be really interesting from our industry, particular, to see how AI can slot in and help us. I don't think it's going to replace jobs, but I think it will help us become more efficient. But it will still need to be monitored at this early stage by a supervisor being a person.
Absolutely. My methodology, to be honest with you, on it, is if we're turning over X with so many staff, how can I automate and make the business more efficient that I can double that turnover and not have to take on another double the staff?
Yep.
That's my take on it. So yeah, absolutely, embrace it, enjoy it.
I'm going to bring you right back now because we've gone off on a tangent.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it before, and I'm interested in what you think because it links to the secret sauce. What makes a great leader?
What makes a great leader? We've said resilience, haven't we?
We have.
We've said resilience, which is need. You need to listen. I think you've got to listen. And bear in mind, please, I'm not saying this based on the fact that I think I'm a great leader. I'm gonna start here and tell you at the end what I think the most important is in that. But
Yeah.
I think you've got to listen. I think, as I said before, you've got to resilience, you've got to listen, you've got empathy. And I think you've got to have patience. Now, that's one of the things that I really struggle with or have struggled with. So that's something I have to work on is patience in one way or the other. But the biggest thing is people. And we keep saying it, we come back to it, it's people. You've got to have the right people doing the right jobs. And it's very powerful, driving the right culture.
And bringing the people on the journey that you have set for the business by listening to other people around you. So I'm a great believer that I will always be the first to say I would love to have, and I have this here, better people, however you want to frame better people than me around me, because it makes me better. It pushes me on to want to be as good, whatever good means, compared to the other people around the table. And to rely on those people all together, myself included, to then look at the picture, distill it and figure out what's the best route. But I'm a firm believer. I don't want to, or do I pretend to be the cleverest? I'm definitely not. I'm not the brightest. Yeah. But I like having better people around than me.
Absolutely. And I think we said it before and alluded to it, we make mistakes and we can't think that we know everything. We don't. Ask questions and have people around you that know or can find out those answers.
And there's no such thing as a silly question.
Absolutely.
I always believe that, but that's what I tell myself anyway. But so leaders, are they born or are they self-taught?
Again, we've kind of touched on it. I think that I don't think they're either. It's a bit of a hybrid, isn't it? I don't think a leader is born. Personally, I don't think you're kind of born and then you become a leader. But I do think you're made within the influences as you're growing up, the bad, the good, and the bad influences that you actually have and receive. And I think you're created and made personally.
I agree. But being where you are, so the leader of a really, really successful business, do you ever suffer from imposter syndrome?
No.
Why do you think that is?
I check. I don't very often. I'll say that I don't very often. I think the reason why that is because what I do is I don't profess to know everything. I don't profess to be that person that would know everything. Doesn't matter where I am or what room I'm in. I want to listen. I want to learn. I want to learn from other people. They know more than me. Um, do I suffer with it? Possibly. I think, for example, like this podcast, I do think sometimes why would people want to listen to me? So I suppose that's part of imposter syndrome. But in general, I don't, because in general, I kind of do my own thing and what we're doing here as a business, and I like to listen and learn from other people.
I need to get you and Nicholas from Scriven's around the table, because that answer you've just given is pretty much word for word what he said.
Really?
So he said he doesn't suffer from imposter syndrome because he's comfortable not knowing everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're comfortable not knowing everything and actually don't pretend to know everything, you shouldn't have imposter syndrome.
Correct. Agreed.
And on the journey that you've been on, so you mentioned that you've gone from a cold winter's night coming back as a mechanic to now leading the company. What's been your greatest achievement in that period of time?
In 2000, I did a merger.
Mm-hmm.
In 2021, I did an acquisition, the first two, quite big, made a lot of mistakes, learnt a lot. But I think the biggest achievement has got to be, and again, and I hate to keep coming back to it, is the success of the people and having the right people in the right culture in your business and watching them succeed, watching them become successful. I think that's the biggest achievement. Don't have a secret sauce. Work hard at it, but when it works, it's very, very powerful. It's empowering, and I think that is seeing those.
And I think what you're about to say of seeing those people succeed, a lot goes on behind the scenes to make people succeed, because you've got to invest time, you've got to invest confidence, and you've got to want to help people on their journey. And I know from knowing you, you are that individual. You will give up your time out of your day to help someone, as long as they're prepared to help themselves.
Yeah, absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there, James. Absolutely. As long as they're doing that role, prepared to help themselves, I'll give all the time that they want, no problem at all.
And that is despite you spinning many, many, many plates on a daily basis, both personally and in a professional capacity. And I think that's what probably, and I don't know this, which is why I'm saying probably, that's the leader bit again, isn't it? That's the leader bit of realising you do not sit in your ivory tower and give instructions. Actually, you are with everyone on the whole, moving forwards in lockstep, not you just shouting orders.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to be. You can't. Well, certainly the size we are, we're an SME. We all count. We all do anyway. But you can't just bark orders. You're with the team. You're with the team. They're with you. It's one culture, one team. Everybody, as I said, if everybody's coming in every morning and they've got a smile on the face, then that's the biggest achievement, isn't it?
Absolutely is.
They're happy to come to work. If they're happy to come to work, we're doing the right thing, and we're going to do a good job.
Yeah, and everyone always says it. You spend an awful lot of your life at work, whether at work now is actually physically in the premises or working from home. Actually, you spend a lot of your week working. So to have that smile, but it's easier said than done, isn't it? It's easier said than done to get that smile. That comes back to the culture.
Yes, it does, and it's also got to stem from the top, hasn't it?
Yeah.
If you walk around, and smile and be pleasant at the same time. We're professional. We're making sure those statistics and the KPIs, etc., are being hit. But we're walking around, and we're all a team. We're all in it together.
And we mentioned it before, but you've faced quite a lot of headwinds, if I put it that way, historically. If you're looking over on the horizon, what trends do you see affecting your industry, and how are you going to combat them?
don't particularly want to get into politics in this.
Please don't get into politics.
But obviously the trends I think in not just the industry is obviously taxation, isn't it? At the present moment in time, it's a hot topic at the moment. We're not going to get into that, but obviously based on that, I think you've got to have a look. You've got to look at AI, and you've got to embrace technology, and you've got to look at how that is driving your business from an automation perspective. You've got to be you've got to be lean. You've got to be very, very lean as a business now. You can't be lagging behind, but also as well, I think you've also got to you've got to know every facet. You've got to know every single facet of your business. But certainly, I think the AI technology is a hot topic, but I do think it's here to stay. And I think you have got to get into it and see how it can affect and drive your business. Not potentially what's a fad, but what does it mean to you, and how does that drive you and your business forward?
And do you think that AI is going to be a tool for good, or potentially a tool that could affect people's livelihoods? And that's a pointed question on purpose. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, like anything, everything has a double-edged sword, and it depends on who's wielding that sword, doesn't it? I think that from I can only speak from my own personal point of view, and as I said before, I'm not driving AI in the business to drive cost cuttings. I'm driving AI in the business for processes and automation. And how can we drive more profitability? If we can drive the business forward and more profitable, then everybody in the business can be benefiting from that. And that's the way I view that. I think from a negative perspective, there's always positive and negatives to every side of what people want to do with it. I can't comment on that. I can only comment on the way I would use it.
I just find it interesting. You're ahead of the curve, being a tech company itself. To listen to someone like you point out that AI is here. It's been here for a long time, probably, and under a lot of people's radars as to how prevalent and how fast-paced. So I didn't appreciate. I was completely naive. I went to a conference last year, and where I thought AI was here, AI is well and truly over here already, and it continues to develop. And not exaggerating, and you can reaffirm this. It continues to develop on a daily, weekly, if not quicker basis.
Hourly basis. Absolutely. The way I was using it last week has completely changed to the way I was using it at the end of this week. You're right. You've got to catch up with it. But by the time you have caught up with it, it's gone again.
It's gone.
It's gone again. Absolutely. But isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting to actually see what it's doing and how it can help you and how it can help you even further, rather than actually waiting 5 years down the line before the next technology advancement? For it to advance that fast, personally, I think it's great. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
it is exciting. And I look back on what tech I was using at university, and I'm sounding old now. I'm not that old. I still remember the overhead projectors. I think Facebook had just come into existence. The dial tone being shouted at to get off the landline because you had to dial tone. Look how far we've come.
The battery, I think I had one.
Yeah. And the first iPhone. I remember sat in the pub, seeing my friend with the first iPhone, looking at it, thinking, "What on earth is this?" Everything through a phone. It was just unheard of.
Yeah. It's just. But technology was growing fast then. But as of in today's world, it's nothing. It is as hour by hour at the moment. But like you said, what is it being driven by? Is it being driven by what's the underlying current? Is it greed? Is it negative? But I think ultimately you've just got to kind of look at it, stay away from that, and utilise it in your own business.
I think you've got to embrace it, because if you don't embrace it, you are well and truly, my opinion, you will be left behind. And if you're left behind, you probably will find it very, very challenging to catch up.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed.
So we've talked about you, we've talked about Langley as a business, and what you're doing to shape and help progress and drive it forwards to continue being successful. And I know you use external support, whether that external support is professional or not. You mentioned being a nimble business. You mentioned being able to make decisions quickly so you can get ahead of the curve. What do you look for from external advisors? So apart from the technical expertise, which should be a given, whoever you use in whatever way, shape or form, what do you look for to help you in your business?
I have what I call three advisors, what I feel. And I also look at those advisors as an extension of my SLT team. So I look at them that they have to have the same, understand me, who I am, what I'm about, and what my business is about. I look at them and understand that they're working with me on that and not against me. But also they have to be people's people.
Yeah.
Got to be people, which is what we are and what we are in this business. And if we can get on, and they understand what I'm about, what the business is about, what the core values are, and what we're trying to drive forward, then they become that extension of my SLT team. And I've got three: a business coach, legal, and accountant. And I think part of those three people, I always bring those in side of my business, metaphorically, from a point of view of working with me.
I think it's so interesting that you say people, because there's an old saying, isn't there, that people buy from people. And you can look at that, whether people buy from people internally, as in the trust aspect, or from your perspective equally, you are a business that goes out and sells in the hope that someone will acquire your services. So people buy from people can be all the way around, not just internally, but it can be external. But that is quite hard to find, isn't it?
It is. It is. How do you find these people? That's a question for you.
I have no idea. I think exactly the same as you. I think if you can, it comes back to the work point. We're at work, we all want to smile. It is always a lot easier in life, personally and professionally, if you enjoy the other person's company and you can have a transparent and two-way conversation. And if you can have those difficult conversations, I think that's when you know you've got a true relationship, because things will not be plain sailing all of the way. We come back to the mistake piece. Either me or you may make a mistake and it could have an impact. But if you can talk about it and get over that, it's the relationship and the trust that one mistake doesn't define what a relationship is at all, in my view. A relationship is strong because you can overcome it.
I agree. I think you said as well there, isn't it? The trust in the relationship and the trust between the commercial entities, because I think that we're not always going to see eye to eye. I'm not always going to have the answers that I want from certain advisors. What I do have is the ability to trust. Otherwise, I wouldn't be using those people.
What are you paying for if you don't?
Trust and agree that actually they've got my best interests at heart. Whoever that is, and go with that advice.
I'm looking at the time, and we're coming up to nearly an hour, and I could speak to you for a lot longer than an hour. So I'm going to go to some quick fire questions that I've asked other people that you may or may not have seen. So I'm going to start and say, are you performance driven, so KPIs, or people driven?
How long have I got to answer these?
Quick fire questions.
10 years ago, performance. Today, edging over more to people.
So both.
People more driven at now, but that's my age.
You're not old. What sets your company apart from the competitors?
Ethics, being people, genuine, and being absolutely genuine that we actually enjoy doing business with people. And I always say, if we go out and people trust us to do a job for them and we take money off them, genuinely, we want to do that best job that we can.
Yep. Head or heart?
Head.
Micromanage or trust your people?
Trust.
This is a hard one, and I'm glad I'm not asked this. Any regrets?
None. Never. Oh, hang on a second. Personal or commercial?
Oh, I'm going to ask commercial. I'm going to ask commercial. We'll be here too long, probably, on the personal side. Right. I know you're only 22, but I'm going to take you back to when you were a 21-year-old. You've not been long out of your overalls from doing all the mechanics work. You're a bit warmer now. You're probably working inside a nice heated building. If I could put you in front of your 21-year-old self, if you could say one key bit of advice, what would it be and why? Just one.
I would say patience. And I'm going to expand, I'm sorry on that.
No, expand, because I'm interested in this.
I'd say slow down. The drive and the passion is 100% correct. Slow down and listen. Slow down and listen more. Have more patience is what I would say.
I've really enjoyed the last hour, and I know all of our listeners will have, because you have come up with some great pearls of wisdom, not only from a personal level, but I think from a professional level. And I think people listening to this can look inside your business already and know what it's about. And it's clear. It really, really is clear. People are central, and you've done great things. You will continue to do great things. From me, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.